Is this where? Oh, there we go. All right. Hey, can we just give it up for Trey? It's quite a task. It's quite a feat to read through a list of 10 Greco-Roman names that none of them are easy to pronounce. So, can we just give it up for him? That's like, he just deserves extra applause. But it is a joy to be with you tonight. If we've never had the chance to meet, my name is Taylor. I'm one of the pastors here. And it is truly it's an honor to be with you guys on Sunday night. I love what God is doing in your midst. And so it's an honor for me to be a part of it. It's an honor for me also just simply to close out this series as you've been going through Colossians, because I know Nick mentioned this the first week, and I concur with him that there are a lot of parallels between, I think, the Colossian church and you all. Because the Colossian church was young, they were vibrant, they were gifted, they were on fire, they were anointed by the Spirit, and God was doing great things. And I see that same thing happening here. And so we're going to close out this series, and again, we're looking at kind of the closing credits of this letter. But first, I don't know if any of you, if you've ever had one of those out-of-body experiences. Like, I'm not talking about one of those near-death experiences like Lee Strobel was today. That's not what I'm talking about. Never had that. But if you ever had that moment where it seems like time seems to slow down, everything seems to pause. And this happened for me at a really pivotal moment in my life. So I'm a dad. I got 4 children, and I've been in the privilege to be in the delivery room for all 4. But my first son, Leland, he was being born. And I was young. I was 22. And I remember as my wife is pushing, right, as we're watching our son come into this world, I was overcome, surprisingly, with a sense of fear, with a sense of worry, because I felt supremely unready to be a dad. I was like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm here. It's happening now, but I'm not ready for this. I'm not prepared for this. And generally, just like in that moment, like almost like this level of fear, or just like, can we push this kid like back in for like, can we like put him on simmer for another couple months so that I can get ready? And that just time seemed to stop in that moment, but I heard this voice. Maybe it was from the Lord, but it said, Taylor, it's time to grow up now. Taylor, it's time to grow up now. And I realized that part of the childlike part of me, part of that child needed to be put aside because I had adult work to do to be a dad. It's time to grow up. I remember that very clearly. And I wouldn't say that maturity is Paul's main theme in this letter, but it's definitely been something that he's been returning to over and over. We see that early on in chapter 1 where he says this, "Him we proclaim, warning everybody and teaching everyone with all wisdom that we may present everyone mature in Christ." That was Paul's goal. He says, "For this I toil with all of the power that God is giving me to present you all mature in Christ." That is Paul's purpose. It's the Greek word teleos. It means maturity. And it's the same concept that James is going to talk about in his letter too, the first chapter where James says this, where he says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be teleos, you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And you all know this, that Christian maturity, spiritual maturity is not a matter of age. Because let me tell you, I have met 20-year-olds who have far more spiritual maturity than a lot of 60-year-olds I know. Christian maturity, spiritual maturity is not a matter of age. It's a matter of consistency. It's a matter of faithfulness. It's a matter of doing the same right thing over and over. It's what Eugene Peterson titled his book on discipleship, "A Long Obedience in the Same Direction." And you can be spiritually mature as a young person. And you can be very spiritually immature as a very old person. So I'm going to call our talk tonight, "It's Time to Grow Up." And like I said, we're looking at the end credits of Paul's letter. And no, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I get it. If you've read this before, maybe you've skipped over it. It's like, it's another, reading the Bible, it's another list of names, okay? That's okay. If you skipped over it, that's all good. That used to kind of be me until about 4 years ago. But it's okay. No sweat, no judgment. But much like the Transformers motto, there's more than meets the eye. I think that there's more than meets the eye with this list of names. It seems innocuous. It seems kind of pointless. Like, is this actually scripture, just a bunch of names? I think there's a reason for it, so I want to lean into it. We're going to look at, like I said, there's 10 names in this list. We're only looking at 6 of them. But I think those 6 names give us 4 instructions on how to be mature. I realize I'm throwing numbers at you, like 10 names, 6 names. No, 6 names, 4 instructions on how to be mature. Here's the first instruction, is don't go alone. Don't go alone. And during COVID, maybe you remember this too, I started hearing this term, loneliness epidemic. I heard that term really emerge during COVID. There's all these pieces that were just like, in the midst of these unprecedented times, there's another loneliness that's lurking. It always very dramatic, very catastrophic sounding, with this idea of a loneliness epidemic. Uniquely, the articles I was reading were talking about how young people especially were suffering with this loneliness epidemic. They were struggling to find connection more than prior generations had. But as I was reading this week, there's some people who are more lonely than others. There's some people who have been turning to, we'll just say, other sources for connection, for friendship. And I was reading a Forbes article from just this last April, and they coined the term algorithmic intimacy. Algorithmic intimacy, and I'd never heard that before, but this is why they said that, is that there's an increasing number of people who are turning to AI tools like ChatGPT, like Microsoft Copilot, not for productivity, not to make the AI do the stuff you don't want to do, not to make it do spell check, but actually they're turning to these AI tools for connection, for conversation. That the psychologist who wrote this article said that for people who on average spend 30 plus minutes using these tools, they're more likely to call that AI algorithm a friend. Like, they will actually be inclined to call ChatGPT a friend. So clearly, we are dealing with a crisis of friendship in this world. There's a crisis of friendship. People don't know how to make friends because, again, if they knew how to make friends, they wouldn't be talking to a computer. But they don't know how to make friends, and they definitely don't know how to keep friends. But even for those of you do have friends, like you have an active social life, that's great. You also need to acknowledge that just because you have friends doesn't mean they're good for you. They may not be leading you in a positive direction. You've probably seen the meme. It wasn't a meme at first. It emerged from kind of the entrepreneur, grind set, we're going to go achieve things. It's that term, check your circle. You guys heard of that? Check your circle. I have a picture of one of them. It's coming. Don't worry. Patience. Patience is a virtue, guys. It's a fruit of the Spirit. Check your circle. We got that? There we go. Look at that. For some reason, it always has a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio or Tom Hardy or the guy from Oppenheimer. I'm forgetting his name. But anyhow, if you're 20 to 30 and your main circle isn't discussing opening businesses, investing, escaping the 9-to-5, fitness, self-development, then it's time to find a new circle. And right, that's just like, okay, come on, roll your eyes. And so, of course, it turned into a meme. I have that. I prefer the memes of this one. Nick and I frequently send each other memes like this. Let's see, it's coming. There we go. Look at that. If you're 20 to 30 and you're just not discussing hunting, skinwalkers, people living in your walls, okay, you get it, right? It turned into a meme. Check your circle. Your network is your network. Okay, whatever, dude. But honestly, I would actually hope that you are checking your circle, checking the people who are around you, because I hope that the people in your circle look like the men that we are reading about. That first name, Tychicus. I want to read the first couple verses again. Tychicus will tell you all about my activities. He's a beloved brother and faithful minister and fellow servant in the Lord. I've sent him to you for this very purpose, that you may know how we are and that he may encourage your hearts. Look at those terms, beloved brother, faithful minister, fellow servant. Like that, those are some pretty heavy, this is the Apostle Paul. Like if you want to have anybody repping you, hyping you up, it's Paul. And he's got a pretty big opinion of this guy, Tychicus. And Tychicus is mentioned 5 times in the New Testament. There's plenty of side characters in the New Testament who don't even get a name. Tychicus is mentioned 5 times. He's important. He was a close, long-term traveling companion, fellow minister, co-worker with Paul. In fact, he was likely the person who took this letter to the Colossian church for Paul. That was a big deal to represent the Apostle Paul, and that's this man, Tychicus, who is chosen to be Paul's delegate. But look at that. Again, beloved brother, faithful minister, fellow servant. Do you have somebody in your circle who fits that description? They're a beloved brother or sister. They're like a brother. They're like a sister to you. They're a faithful minister. They're a fellow servant that you share common purpose. You are working together in the kingdom of God with them. Do you have somebody like that in your life? And if you do, those are the people that you stick around. If you have a Tychicus in your life, hang out with them. Prioritize proximity to people like Tychicus. Why? Because they're going to make you better. You will be a better Christian by hanging around good Christians. People who love the Lord are naturally going to inspire you towards greater faithfulness for Jesus. That's Tychicus. Find a Tychicus in your life if you don't have one. The second name I want to look at is Epaphras, who again, likely the person who planted the Colossian church. Verses 12 and 13. Look at them again with me. Epaphras, who is one of you, a servant of Christ Jesus, greets you, always struggling on your behalf in his prayers, that you may stand mature and fully assured in all the will of God. For I bear witness that he has worked hard for you and for those in Laodicea and Hierapolis. Think about that. Struggling in your prayers. The Greek, again, it connotes this idea of that he's wrestling, he's struggling, he's agonizing for you in your prayers. How many of us, if we're honest, when somebody asks us to pray for them, they get 5 seconds at best, maybe 10. Epaphras shows us, I believe, one of the unsung but most important spiritual gifts, and that's the gift of intercession, okay? We're all called to pray for one another, but you know the people who have the gift of intercession. Those are the people you want praying for you. They're struggling for you in prayer. They have the gift of intercession. They're prayer warriors, right? I don't have that gift. I'm not saying I'm not going to pray for you, but I'm just telling you, honesty, I don't have the gift of intercession. So if you want to go find somebody who does, that's okay. My wife has the gift of intercession. She fights for people in prayer, right? She's a prayer warrior. And I tell you, when she prays for you, things are going to shift in your life, okay? That's how you know somebody has the gift of intercession. They're praying for you. So as you're checking your circle, do you have people who are actually praying for you? You'll know that when they text you out of the blue. When you're not even with them and they text you to saying, hey, I'm praying for you, dude. I'm praying for you. I was thinking about you today. That's how you know you have an Epaphras in your life, is somebody you have praying for you. Real friends pray for their friends, especially when their friends you're not with them. That's how you know they actually care about you. So I'm hoping, again, you're checking your circle of friends. I hope that you have real friends who care about you. Not just friends who say they care about you, but are really more interested in what you do for them. Find friends who care about you. Life is too short to have crappy friends. Don't surround yourself with poopy friends because life is too short, okay? Find people who care about you. Find people who pray for you. Find people who, like Epaphras, want you to stand mature in your faith in Jesus. They're going to help you get closer to Jesus, not drag you away. Those are the friends you need. Life is too short to have crappy friends. And if you played Legend of Zelda, you'll remember the beginning of the game, the original Legend of Zelda. You're playing it, you walk into a cave, there's an old man, and he has a sword standing in front of him. And what do? You walk up to him and he says, it's dangerous to go alone, take this. Right? He gives you the sword that you're going to play the game with. It's dangerous to go through life without friends. It's dangerous to go through life without community. This list right here in Colossians shows us that Paul was not a one-man band. He was not roaming around the Roman Empire all on his own, platforming himself. He lived in community. He lived in community. He had close people around him. So did Jesus. He had 12 disciples, 3 really close disciples. Jesus lived in community. So loneliness, the reality is loneliness is part of the human experience. You and I are going to go through times and seasons of real loneliness. It can't really be avoided. But isolation is your choice. You choose to be isolated. You don't always choose to be lonely. You choose to be isolated. When you take that loneliness and you turn it into, I'm not going to connect with people around me. Isolation is a choice. It's dangerous to go alone. Elred of Rivaux, in his book Spiritual Friendship, says this: no medicine is more valuable, none more efficacious, none more better suited to the cure of all our temporal ills than a friend to whom we may turn for consolation in time of trouble and whom we may share our happiness in time of joy. Don't go alone. Second instruction is this: don't stay mad. Not don't be mad, don't stay mad. There's a difference. I want to tell you this. I feel it's worth confessing this publicly. Maybe it's a sin, actually, I don't know. But I love celebrity gossip, dude. Like, I really do. It's really stupid for like a grown man of my age to like be that interested in it, but I am. But I'm not talking about just like ooh, this person's dating this person. Can you believe this person wore that? And that's not, no. I want the unhinged stuff. I want the out-of-pocket, problematic behavior, right? I want the Justin Bieber yelling at a photographer, I'm standing on business. Even is that? Like, I genuinely don't even know what that is. I want the Elon, I want the Trump de-evolution of the bromance. I want the Kendrick and Drake beef that literally goes to the Super Bowl and is viewed in front of millions, where Kendrick slaughters another human being with his words. That's the beef. That's what I want. Or the Oasis, like this mid-British band from the 90s that made one good album, and yet they can't get together, whatever. I don't even know what they're arguing about, but like, that's the sort of stuff I live for. And you probably do too, even if you won't admit it. Celebrity gossip, celebrity feuds. Well, it's because the cultural moment, this zeitgeist that we live in, is fueled by perpetual outrage. So we look at other people fighting and it's entertaining. Why do you think the Romans had gladiator fights? It's fun to watch other people fight. It's a fun distraction to get wrapped up in someone else's drama because it distracts you from your own. Okay, so that's why let's confess it, we all like drama. And that leads us to this next name, Onesimus, verse 9. And with him Onesimus, our faithful and beloved brother, who is one of you. They will tell you everything that has taken place here. So like some of the names that in this list, we are going to have to leave Colossians to make some sense of who they are. So I'm going to read a few verses out of Philemon. Philemon was written to a leader in the Colossian church. And we find out that Onesimus is actually Philemon's slave. And I'll explain that here in a minute. But this is what Paul says, Philemon. This is a private letter that we have in the New Testament. I appeal to you for my child Onesimus, whose father I became in my imprisonment. Formerly, he was useless to you, but now he is indeed useful for you and to me. I am sending him back to you, sending my very heart. I'd have been glad to keep him with me in order that he might serve me on your behalf during my imprisonment for the gospel, but I prefer to do nothing without your consent in order that your goodness might not be by compulsion, but by your own accord. For this perhaps is why he was parted from you for a while, that you might have him back forever, no longer as a bondservant, slave, no longer as a bondservant, but more than a bondservant, as a beloved brother, especially to me, but now more to you, both in the flesh and in the Lord. In short, Philemon, leader in the Colossian church, Onesimus was one of his slaves. This was quite common. I think it is worth pausing here just for a moment, because we hear the word slave and we automatically start to think of slavery in America. Slavery is bad across the world, across the ages, but the slavery happening in the Greco-Roman world was a bit different. It wasn't along racial lines. It wasn't about racial superiority. It was oftentimes, yes, it could be oppressive, but sometimes it wasn't. It was really more like an employer-employee dynamic. It depended on the master. But in this case, Onesimus is not a believer. He's not a converted Christian. He's not a believer. He's owned by Philemon, and at some point he probably steals a good amount of money or resources from Philemon and his family, and he jets out of town. He's trying to avoid prosecution. That's illegal to do what he did, but he ends up in Rome, probably goes on a major bender, but he meets Paul. He meets Paul. Paul introduces Onesimus to Jesus, and then suddenly Onesimus is serving the gospel with Paul. But this is very important because Philemon would have told the rest of the church about what happened. The entire church knew that Onesimus took a bunch of money from him and left. So for Paul, he's actually, we miss it, but Paul is doing something very radical here because he's saying, hey, I'm sending back Onesimus to you. You're right, he's a slave, you're the master, but that's not how you're going to relate to him anymore. That relationship is over. I'm sending him back to you as a beloved brother. He's a beloved brother. In this letter, he says, he's one of you. And again, we miss that. You're just like, okay, cool, Onesimus, he's a member of the community. No, the Roman Empire at this time was so inherently class-focused. All you cared about was knowing who are you better than and who is better than you. And stay in your lane. Stay on your rung of society and don't try to climb. And so a slave was effectively a nobody. Onesimus was a nobody. He was the nobody that the Colossian church knew. Not only is he a nobody, but he stole from a leader of our church. That's not okay. And yet Paul is saying, no, he is one of you. He tells Philemon privately, he's a beloved brother. He's one of you. He is doing something radical where he's saying, you see him as a slave. You see him as a nobody. Not anymore. He's not a slave anymore. He is your equal. I believe that Paul is implying strongly, Philemon, you better free this boy when he gets back to you. I think that's what Paul is implying here, but he's saying he's your equal now. That was radical in this world. Paul's acting as a mediator between these two, saying, hey, you need to receive this man because, yes, he was a criminal, but now he's on my team, and I'm sending him back to represent me, so you better treat him well because he's one of you now. So he's advocating for reconciliation and forgiveness because that is what should be happening in the Christian community. And if a former master and a former slave can reconcile together because of their new shared identity in Jesus, what's our excuse when we exclude people from our friend group for far lesser offenses? They probably didn't steal money from you, and yet you won't talk to them now. You start a new group chat without them in it. What's your excuse for that? But look at the next name, Mark. Look at Mark in verse 10. And again, we're going to have to go a little bit outside of Colossians to understand this. Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, greets you, and Mark, the cousin of Barnabas, concerning whom you have received instructions. If he comes to you, welcome him. Unlike Onesimus, this was personal for Paul. Because you may or may not know the story, right? Acts chapter 16, Paul, Barnabas, ministry duo. They're spreading the gospel. They're best friends. Mark is Barnabas' cousin. Barnabas brings Mark along, but Mark, in his youth, leaves. He dips out. He abandons the mission trip early. And when Barnabas wants to bring Mark along on the next mission trip, Paul's like, we're not bringing a flake on this trip. But the conflict was so severe that best friends could not be in the same room together. They said, we love each other, we love Jesus, but we can't work together anymore. This man cost Paul his best friend. This man's behavior cost Paul his closest friend. That's big. This was personal for Paul. And if Paul was a less mature Christian, he could have used this letter to put Mark on blast. He's an idiot. He's a flake. He's gonna run out on you. If you see this dude, it's on sight, right? That's not what Paul does. That's not what Paul does. Instead, he says, no, Mark, he's a friend of mine, and he's coming to you. In fact, he actually says he orders them to welcome him. In the Greek, it's an imperative. You must welcome him if he shows up. You already know about him. Welcome him and give him hospitality. That's a big deal because it shows us at some point, Paul and Mark reconciled. Paul forgave Mark for a personal wound and was then willing to say, I'm going to lay that pain aside. We're going to keep working together for Jesus. He practiced what he preached. He wasn't just telling them, hey, Philemon, you need to forgive Onesimus. No, he actually said, I'm going to forgive a guy who wounded me deeply. Radical forgiveness must be happening in the Christian community. So, reflection time. Think about your friend group. Would you say that you are welcoming to friends? So you bring in a lot of people into your friend group, but you're constantly having to start new group chats because people are leaving. People describe your friend group as, and they're kind of dramatic. People get hurt when they become a part of your friend group. If that's the case, there's an issue. I'm going to say this pretty bluntly. To live in unreconciliation, to live in unforgiveness, I don't care what your I genuinely couldn't care less what your justification for it is. To live in unforgiveness is to live an unchristian life. To live in unforgiveness, to always perpetually choose unreconciliation, is to live an unchristian life. We are to be a people who practice what we preach. If we believe that God reconciled us to him, you better believe we better be reconciling with one another. We have to practice what we preach. And if Jesus can restore one of his best friends who abandoned him at the most vulnerable time in Jesus' life, abandoned him, and not only that, literally denied knowing him. Imagine your closest friend saying, I don't even know who this guy is. I don't know him. If Jesus can look at Peter and restore him, not just to friendship, but to ministry, what's your excuse? What is my excuse to hold somebody else's sins over their head and say, I'm sorry, dude, I can't. I'm not going to talk to you. We cannot be people who cling to drama. In fact, the mark of a mature Christian is somebody who avoids drama, avoids division. And conversely, the mark of an immature Christian is somebody who loves it. They start drama where there is none. They escalate drama. That is an immature Christian. That is not what it means to be mature. Don't stay mad. Instruction number 3, don't give in. Don't give in. Not only did I share about my secret obsession with celebrity gossip, I'm going to tell you about my credit history. You guys ready for that? So, again, young and dumb Taylor, years and years ago, was very young, had just bought a house, was blessed to do that at a pretty young age, but as often happens when you give a person in their early 20s more credit cards than they really should have, I missed a couple payments, and they hit my credit report at the same time, and my score dropped by 150 in one day. Talk about a deflating moment. What are some takeaways from that? Well, number 1, don't be stupid. Learn from my mistake. Don't get dumb with credit cards. It's not even like spiritual advice. It's just life. Don't get stupid with credit cards. I can tell you why. But another takeaway is that one mistake in my early 20s took me years to recover from. It took me years to dig myself back out of that hole to rebuild my credit. The reason I say that is because I was watching a pretty prominent comedian earlier this year, and they were talking on a podcast about how basically their view was that your 20s, it's kind of a throwaway decade. It doesn't really matter. Their whole idea was basically your 20s don't matter. Life as an adult really gets started in your 30s. So kind of do whatever. Don't stress about it. Don't worry about planning for your future. Just live it up. Do your thing in your 20s, and whatever, you'll figure it out when you hit 30. Your 20s are a throwaway decade. Just do what you want. Just live however you want. Friends, I'm telling you, and as somebody who is now north of my 20s, that's a really disastrous way to approach this decade that I know many of you are in. Because in my life, my 20s was a very formative decade for my life. Lots of patterns, good and bad, were formed in my 20s. My identity as a person was really starting to form in my mid-20s. So for me to approach that decade like a throwaway decade is a problem. But I see a lot of 20-year-olds who actually do that. They live like the years 20 through 29, doesn't matter. Do what you want, live it up, make mistakes. You'll figure it out when you hit 30. That's not what it means to be mature. We as Christians cannot afford to treat life that way. And that leads us to what I believe is the most tragic name on this list, and that's Demas. In verse 14, Luke, the beloved physician, yes, the one who wrote the Gospel of Luke and Acts, Luke, the beloved physician, greets you, as does Demas. And again, we have to leave Colossians to figure out who this guy Demas is. And he's mentioned 3 times, so he's not quite as cool as Tychicus, but he's actually up there. He's mentioned 3 times by Paul. He's mentioned here in the same breath with a man who wrote 2 books of the Bible. Probably Paul's next closest friend after Barnabas was Luke. Luke was with him at the very end. He's mentioned in the same breath as this man. In Philemon, Demas is also mentioned as a fellow brother. He's a faithful worker, a co-laborer. So the same words we were using to describe Tychicus being applied to Demas, and yet between 2 to 4 years later, in 2 Timothy 4:10, this is what Paul says. For Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. He's deserted me. What happened? What happened to this dude? He was on Paul's team. He was one of Paul's all-star players. And then suddenly, Paul's like, yeah, he left me. He deserted me. What happened? Well, Paul gives us a clue, that phrase, in love with this present world, this present age. In short, Demas gave in. Being a Christian, the temptation, the weight of life, living in the world, trying to follow Jesus, but being tempted, being a normal human, it was just too much for him, and he finally gave in. The temptations were finally heavy enough that he was just like, nah, dude, I think I'm just going to go live in Thessalonica. I don't really want to do this Jesus thing anymore. That's tragic. This is one of Paul's closest friends abandoned him, not because they had a falling out, but because Demas loved this present age too much. We don't know what it is. We don't know why it happened. We don't know exactly what went down, but maybe it was simply being in Paul's circle, getting to do great things for God without being close to God. It got to Demas's head. Maybe reading this letter and saying, "Oh shoot, I'm on the same line as Luke." It went to his head. Because I bet you this, to get mentioned that many times in Paul's letters, Demas was probably really gifted. He was probably a gifted dude. We'd say, oh man, he was so anointed. Maybe he's a worship leader. Maybe he's a pastor, whatever. I don't know. But Demas was a ministry powerhouse. Paul trusted this guy. And yet, even him, even being that close to one of the greatest men of God on this earth, wasn't enough for Demas. He gave in. The weight of this world's temptations, what it offered him in the end, was better than what Jesus was offering him, or so Demas thought. So he left. He traded his calling for comfort. And that's heavy. In the modern equivalent, I wonder, because I'm always wondering, it's like, hey, like, what does this mean for us? Well, might look like someone in this community. Maybe, again, you're super involved, you're engaged, like you show up to Collective every week like clockwork, you serve, you're faithful. When you guys do nursing home outreaches, you're always there. Maybe you serve elsewhere here at this church, you're locked in, you're always pursuing God here at church. But as soon as groups are done tonight, you all start thinking, well, a friend invited me to Dirty Bourbon, and I think I'm going to go head over there. You might be thinking, Taylor, come on, dude. You ragging on us for going to the Dirty Bourbon? Is that legalistic? Maybe. Here's the deal. Maybe it is. I don't know. But the amount of young adults that I talk to who name that location as part of their life, part of their struggle with habitual sin, is actually pretty staggering, because it's not just 1 or 2. I hear that location come up a lot in conversation. And it's never in a good sense of, wow, met somebody at the Dirty Bourbon. They love Jesus too. We're going to go to Collective together. No, it's usually like, yeah, I went to Dirty Bourbon. I got super drunk and I went home with somebody who I wasn't supposed to, and now I'm not doing so good. So am I being legalistic? Maybe. I don't think so. But I'll be honest, I'm really tired of seeing the story of Demas play out in young adults' lives. I'm tired of it, guys, because I've seen it happen too many times. somebody who's young and they're gifted and they're passionate, they're full of potential. God is using them, and yet they, in their deepest, darkest moments, still have a love for this present world, this age, and they don't do anything about it. They are nursing, like what I believe Demas was, some secret sin, some addiction. They're showing up to church, they're on fire when they're at church, but they go home, they go elsewhere, and they're not on fire. What happens? You're going to crash out. You will. At some point, you will be like Demas. Because I also know this personally. I've watched it happen. People that I sat with in these chairs, I'll look back, because I'm not that much older than most of you all, but I'm further enough down the road to say, I've watched a lot of young adults who sat in these chairs with me, who we did ministry together, but they shipwrecked their faith. They loved this present world too much, and they're not here anymore, guys. They're not here anymore. And I hope you understand where this is coming from. It's coming from a place of love. But honestly, how close do you have to put your hand to the fire before you get burned? Like how close do you have to get before you're getting burned? Is it really the maturity that Paul is talking about, the teleos? Is it really that, to tiptoe as close to the line of sin and be like, I'm just going to pray that I'm not going to sin. I'm not going to do it. Is that maturity? No, it's not. But I watch so many people your age, younger and older, play that game well into their 40s. I'm going to tiptoe. I'm going to hope that my willpower is good enough. I've tiptoed. I'll put myself in the most compromising position, but I'm going to hope that I say no right here. You won't. You won't. Demas thought that he was better than sin. Demas thought that he was safe from sin. Look at all the things that God is doing in my life. Look at all that I'm doing for the Lord. Those temptations don't have a power over me anymore. I'm not tempted by that, so I can be around it. That's okay. It's not an issue for me anymore. He thought that he was too good, that he was exempt from sin. But here's the problem, is that you are still the same old you that you've always been. Yes, Jesus is changing in you. Yes, God is working and shaping you to be like Jesus, but you are still you. And the things that you are weak to will probably follow you. So you can't let off the gas pedal. You have to be rigorous in resisting sin. Demas wasn't, and that's why he's on this list in this way. Don't give up. Don't give in. And that's what's tragic about ministry, guys. And you guys know that. I know that some of you know it too. The tragedy of ministry is that not everybody who starts it with you is going to finish it with you. You're going to know a lot of people who sat with you in these chairs, but they didn't finish well. They didn't finish at all. They left. They loved this present world too much. Don't give in. Don't give in. Don't go alone. Don't stay mad. Don't give in. Finally, thank you for staying with me this long. Don't give up. Don't give up. Any rock climbers in the room? Like, I know that was like a lot of rock climbing energy happening, right? Tyler in the back. I know you guys rock climb. That's super cool. I've done it a few times. Like, nah. Glad that you love it. God bless you. I like my motorcycle more. It's more fun. But when I was 9 years old, Stone Age had just opened up. They had one location, which I realized just like, oh man, he's that old. Yes, I am. But they had just opened up one location, and I was so excited. It was my birthday party. I was 9 years old. So we go there. I get my friends. I get my cousins. I've never climbed rocks. Like, I've never done rock climbing before. But I'm going to do my birthday party. And I courageously let my friends go first. And I'm seeing them struggling. I'm thinking, man, they just don't got it. I got this. And I get like 10 feet up. I'm doing okay. And then the higher up, I'm just like, this is hard. And my legs are starting to shake. Why? Because I've never done this before. I'm starting to get up there. It's like, oh, man, this is really high. Oh, that's right. I'm afraid of heights. Oh, that's right. I'm deathly afraid of heights. What am I doing up here? And so I, for my own birthday party, was in tears about halfway up the wall. I was bawling. I was only probably about maybe 5 or 10 feet away from the top, but I was in tears, begging the person below, please let me down. I want to come down. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm crying. Literally, the entire gym stopped what they were doing to cheer my name at my birthday party. 40, 50 people all chanting my name as I'm weeping at the top of a climbing wall. Genuinely, one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. But in that moment, all I wanted to do was to give up because like, this sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. This is really hard. And I wanted to give up. And that leads us to our final name on this list, Archippus. Verse 17, and say to Archippus, see that you fulfill the ministry that you have received in the Lord. We know, just going to say this right now, we know basically nothing about this dude. But commentators would say that there's probably a greater than normal chance that he's probably Philemon's son. Okay, Philemon, leader in the church, guy who owned Onesimus. Archippus is probably his son. So yet again, another young, on fire guy who's super involved in church. And Paul saves his last few words of this letter, which again, beautiful letter. You've just been studying it. Beautiful letter. The last person that Paul talks to is Archippus. He just says, fulfill the ministry that you've received in the Lord. Why does he say that? We don't know. Welcome to a lot of questions about in Bible scholarship. We don't know. But here's our guess. Paul, being a really good pastor, maybe he knew that Archippus was in the situation that Demas was going to be one day, where Archippus is wavering. He's like, I love the church, I love Jesus, I love the gospel, but I also love the world, and I love hanging out with my unsaved friends, and I love partying with them, and that, man, it's starting to get really, they're super cool, and they don't persecute me when I don't tell them about Jesus. I'm not rejected with them. Maybe Archippus was wavering. Maybe he was ready to give in, to give up. I mean, like, this is hard. And that's the unacknowledged, or at least the rarely acknowledged truth about being a Christian, is that it's really hard. We focus in the American church about how great it is to be a Christian. And I'm not arguing that. It is. I love Jesus. That, as do you. But can we just all acknowledge being a Christian is actually really freaking hard? It's harder than we thought it was coming into this. Because it's really easy to become a Christian. All right? It's really easy. You don't have to do work. You don't have to fix yourself and come to Jesus. You just come as you are. Jesus will accept you as you are. It's really easy to become a Christian. It's really hard to stay one. It's really hard to stay a Christian. We don't talk about that a lot in church, right? Talk about how great it is, not how hard it is. Not what it's going to cost you, which, in fairness, it's not because Jesus didn't tell us. He literally says, the opening call to discipleship, take up your cross, follow after me, deny yourself, basically die to yourself, and that's how you are a disciple. We just don't like talking about that verse. We just want to talk about the benefits package of being a Christian. But reality is, you read the New Testament, there's a whole lot of the Bible that talks about perseverance, that talks about endurance in the face of hardship. That is an exhortation. Don't give in. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep going. I know that the world's hard. I know that you want to give up. Don't do it. The entire book of Hebrews is written to a community of Christians who are about ready to throw in the towel. The book of 1 Peter is written to a bunch of Christians who are about ready to throw in the towel. Do you get the picture? Over and over and over. Even Paul is saying, man, this is so hard. We kind of wish we weren't alive anymore. Like we wish we were dead. It's that hard to be a Christian right now. It's hard to stay a Christian, and the Bible gets it. That's why God gave us so much exhortation to remain firm, to stand steadfast, to not give up. And Paul's final words in this beautiful letter, filled with so much encouragement, so much rich theology, he spends his final words saying, Archippus, I know it's hard right now, dude. I know it sucks right now, buddy. Don't give up. Just hold on a little bit longer. Fulfill the ministry that you've received in the Lord. Don't give up now. That's what Paul's talking about in Galatians 6:9. Do not grow weary in doing good, for in due time you will see a harvest if you do not give up. Archippus, there's a harvest coming, buddy, but you're only going to see it if you don't give up now. If you give up now, you're never going to see it. And young adult, wherever you are, because I know that there's some Archippuses, Archippi. Maybe you're in his shoes or his sandals. I don't know what Archippus wore, but maybe you're where he's at. You know, like, I love this Jesus thing. It's beautiful, but it's also really hard. And it wasn't this hard when I wasn't a Christian. It wasn't this hard when I was serving faithfully in ministry. It was just easier to just show up to church and leave. I don't want to do this anymore. This whole following Jesus thing, I like the forgiveness. I like all of that. I like going to heaven when I die, but this is hard in the right now. I don't want to think about eternity when it's so hard to be a Christian right now because my family won't talk to me anymore. I don't have friends anymore. It's hard. And you're in that place where you're thinking, I don't think I want to do this Jesus thing anymore. If that's you, I just want to say it's okay to feel that way again. Paul was in that spot a few times in his life. Great men and women of faith were in that position where they were ready to give up. But just like what Paul said to Archippus, don't give up. I get it. Egypt looks really good when you're in the middle of the desert and you ain't got no food. Egypt looks really good. Man, I hated it there, but at least I could eat. Hey, I didn't like life, how depressed I was, how caught in addiction I was before I met Jesus, but I had friends. They would hang out with me. They didn't think I was weird now. I didn't have to read my Bible. I didn't have to go to church. I could just do my thing. Don't give up. Just don't give up. You are going to see a harvest, but not if you give up now. I can tell you that. That's the only time you won't see the harvest is when you give up right now. And it's really easy. It's really easy to be Archippus and to want to give up. It's really easy to be Demas and have already given up. Maybe this is the last time you are planning to be a collective. You're just like, I've already abandoned this whole thing. I'm just here because I don't want my Christian friends to know that I'm not a Christian anymore, to know that I'm not walking with the Lord. So I'm just going to keep showing up for a little bit longer. Maybe I can fake it. Or I'll make some excuses why I don't come anymore. When I boil it down, I think that maturity in Christ is just not giving up. I think that's what it means, is tenacity. It means faithfulness. It means this is hard, and I'm tired, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going, because that's what Paul's life was marked by. He's just like, I'd really rather be with Jesus now. This sucks, dude. I've been beaten up. I've been mauled and mutilated for Jesus. I'd rather go home and be with Jesus now, but it's more beneficial for you if I stick around a little bit longer. Paul didn't give up. And he could say at the end of his life, I've run my race. I've done it. I was faithful. I'm getting my crown. I'm okay being poured out as a drink offering. I'm good. I ran my race. I don't know if Archippus finished his race. I don't. We know Demas probably didn't. But as we close this night, as we close this study of Colossians, I just get this sense that there's some of you in this room that you are an Archippus. Like, you're just like, I'm done, dude. I don't want to do this anymore. Or you're Demas. It's like, oh man, I've already kind of left this whole thing, dude. Like, this isn't for me anymore. I like what I have with Jesus, but I'm kind of done. So we're going to close out. And before we go into this next song, I just feel like we need to do this. So let's bow our heads. And when I talked about checking your circle, I'd like you to check your heart. Like, honestly, be real with God just for a couple seconds. Like, are we good, God? Are we good? Because if you're not, this is a pivotal moment, I think, for some of you in this room right now. Maybe you're here. Maybe your friends invited you the first time. You're just like, man, this pastor's talking about how rough it is to be a Christian. I think I'm going to go now. Maybe that's you. Or maybe you've been a Christian for a while. You've been doing the church thing for a while, but life happens. Mistakes were made. You did hang out at the dirty bourbon too long. You made some mistakes that you really regret now. You think that you're not good enough for Jesus, and he's probably better off without you. If that's you, I think that some of you are in this Archippus moment where this is a pivotal moment. Paul sensed it with this man and said, I don't want you to give up now. No matter what you do, just don't give up now. If that's you, if that's where you're at, this is what I'm asking, is just, if you're just like, I just need to make things right with Jesus. I don't want to be Archippus, but I don't want to be Demas. I don't want to abandon Jesus. I feel like I'm about to, though. I feel like I need to get right with Jesus. If that's you, can you just raise your hand so I know who we're praying for? Just like I see your hand. God bless you. Just like I see your hand in the back. God bless you. It's like I just need a fresh start. And this is something that I'm going to ask if it's cool if you do this with us, is that One, if you would come up and meet me here in a moment, not because we want to shame you, but because we love you. And maybe that's the reason why you're feeling like you need to leave, is because you don't feel the love of Jesus. You don't feel the love of the community. So this is what I'd like to do is, number one, I want to make sure that you don't leave this place as a Demas or as an Archippus. I want you to leave it like a Tychicus, like an Epaphras, like an Onesimus, who's faithful, who chose in those key moments, I'm going to stick with Jesus. So let's all stand. And if that's you, I'd love it if you can come down so we can pray. And I'd love the rest of us if we can pray for them. If that's you, come on up. I know it's scary. I get it. But it's also scarier facing the prospect of looking at your life when you're older and saying, I wish I would have chosen the other path. Because right now, your 20s aren't a throwaway decade. Let me tell you that right now. They're not. The decisions you make tonight are going to impact the rest of your life. The only time it's too late to make that decision is when you're 70 and you're saying, man, I wish I would have walked forward. I wish I would have leaned into the community instead of isolated. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to go back to the world. I don't actually love it that much, but I went back to it. Oh, why did I do that? Guys, the most tragic thing for me as a pastor would be to know that's how you finish. I want you to finish well, because I've seen too many people your age who are gifted, who are anointed by the Lord Jesus, who don't. They don't. They miss the opportunity. They said, I feel the Spirit calling, but nah, I'm not picking up. So that's you. Just come on up here. Let's pray together. Let's make a different decision. I believe that it's worth it. I know it's scary, but I promise you every single person around you is on your team. We want to do this with you. Is anyone who wants to come up so we can pray with you? Because the rest of us, we want to pray for you. We don't want you to walk out of here feeling isolated. So that's you. Come on up. We're going to play this song. Just play through a minute. It's all good. I get it. It's scary. I do. But this is a time for courage. This is a time to do it. If you got to come up with some friends, that's okay. Don't go alone. I'm good with that.